everyone, my name is Rebecca Aibado and we are the Group 1. And now we're going to discuss the Chapter 3. It is all about program outcomes and student learning outcomes. Together with my group mates, they are Aben Vanessa, Abon Armijan, Aguilar Jana Maika, Albius Ari Mark, Aldamia Jezebel, Alipola Patty Angela, Oligarbes Leah Lorgie Ann, Badarovijan, Balikov Sheila, and Bandibas Rosaline. So learning outcomes. First is clarify the program outcomes for teacher education. Second is distinguish the 6 levels of knowledge under the cognitive domain. Next is discuss the psychomotor categories and the psychomotor domain of objectives contributed by Samson, Dave, and Harrow. Next is discuss the 6 levels of learning objectives in the affective domain arranged hierarchically. And lastly, discuss the Kendall's and Marzano's new taxonomy. And for our introduction, in this chapter, you will distinguish program outcomes from learning outcomes. Learning outcomes in the 3 different domains, which is the cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. You will also be introduced to Kendall's and Marzano's 5 level of processing information and mental procedure and psychomotor procedure. And now, I'm going to discuss about program outcomes and student learning outcomes. When we say program outcomes, are the knowledge, skills, and abilities of students should possess when they graduate from a program. And student learning outcomes is specify what student will know, be able to do, or be able to demonstrate when they have completed or participated in a course or program. The shift of focus in the education from content to student learning outcomes has changed teacher instructional perspective. Teacher instructional perspective, it is how the teacher organizes time and activities and implementing the concept and plan. In the past, teachers were often heard about their concern to finish their subject matter before the end of the term, maybe because of the number of their student failure to clarify the desired learning outcomes. So teacher concern for outcomes was secondary to the completion of the planned content for the subject. In short, teachers were more content-centered than outcome-centered. So when we say teacher content-centered than outcome-centered, because before teachers are more focused on the content within that specific subject. For example, every quarter they have 10 topics or lessons that they need to finish. So they don't even matter if their student really understand of what they are discussing. The most important things for them is they need to finish their topics within that quarter. They are focusing on the subject matter, not the performance of the student. Now, the new educational perspective requires teacher to visualize idea, graduates in the 3 or more years from graduation and the right after completion of the program. For example, graduation time as stated in the institutional outcomes and program outcomes. The Commission on the Higher Education, the body of regulates of higher education in the Philippines, it is the Memorandum Order Number 20, Series of 2014, requires the following program outcomes for all the higher education institutions. This is the ability to, first, articulate and discuss the latest development in the specific field of practice. This means that the student will be able to know and how to discuss in their own. This memorandum requires to every student in the higher education can acquire that skills or ability to develop. Next is effectively communicate orally and writing using both English and Filipino. This means that the student will be able to communicate orally through English and Filipino. English and Filipino, very simple concept and teaching. We must be able to express ourselves as a high production of education to share our own knowledge, and we can write through English and Filipino. And also, mastering other language is a high point because it can help us to grow more in learning things. C is work effectively and independently in multidisciplinary and cultural teams. So this means that the student can be able to work independently in multidisciplinary, means that the student will perform their own, and the student must know on how to research or discover in their own or learn in their own. So nowadays, we are focusing on the student learning outcomes, which focuses on the performance of the student. For example, the given topic or discussion, and then the student will perform either through essay activity that will apply their content. Next is the act in recognition of professional, social, ethical responsibility, and preserve and promote Filipino historical and cultural heritage. This means that the student learned from the school will apply to his or her life as a professional from social skills and ethical. Some program outcomes are based on the type of higher education institution or HEI, because this determines the focus of purpose of the HEI. For example, graduates of professional institution demonstrate a service orientation in the one's profession. To those who graduate within that institution must need to know on how to demonstrate what the profession he or she finished. Let's say, for example, if you graduate in education, you must know on how to teach the student. Not only that you finish that specific program without enough knowledge on how to perform. Next is graduate of college participate in various types of employment, development activities, and public discourse, particularly in the response of the needs of the communities one service. It means that those students who graduate in college, they need to know on how to perform what they learn on the need of the community. Next is the graduates of universities participate in the generation of new knowledge in the research and development projects. So graduates of university is to be seen as a researcher and develop a quality of program to establish a new study in the society. They are the learner want to make an advancement into our own community. Like, for example, people who don't have no water, so they need to conduct a case study why this community has a problem of water. Next is graduate of state university and colleges must, in addition, and have the competencies to support national, regional, and local development plans. So national plans, example, the Philippines, how you will be able to make own decision and make development more beneficial and more productive in everybody's life. So the regional plans, these are the plans for regional has a different way, like manufacturer companies, how this can be more developed and adding more products and having sufficient prices in the market, and your customers will enjoy the quality of goods and services in the company. And the local plan, sustainable supply for every community. So the program outcomes and student learning outcomes, it is focuses on the learning of the student from the school or after he or she graduate or finish their program, and can be able to apply of what they learned and can be also help to the needs of our community. And that's the end of my report, and the next reporter will be Bada Robijan, and I'm going to discuss about program outcomes for teacher education. That's all, and thank you.
My name is Virginia Baruso. For today's video, we're going to discuss the program outcomes for teacher education. So, as a teacher educator, we must deliver a meaningful experience for our students by interpreting their knowledge of content, pedagogy, the learner, and learning environment should engage a reflective instructional cycle of planning, practicing, assessing, and adjusting based on the data, and of course, applying a variety of communication, instructional, and assessment strategies into our teaching. So, these three memorandum order are some of outcomes in teacher education as a discipline. So, first is CMO number 75 series of 2017. Policy, Standards, and Guidelines for Bachelor of Elementary Education or BEED. With the BEED or Bachelor of Elementary Education aims to develop highly motivated and competent teachers specializing in the content and pedagogy for elementary education after a successful completions all academic requirements of the degree of program. Graduates of the BEED or Bachelor of Elementary Education should be able to practice the teaching professional in an elementary level. So, second one is CMO number 75 series of 2017 or the CHID Memorandum Order, Policies, Standards, and Guidelines for Bachelor of Secondary Education or BSED. The BSED or Bachelor of Secondary Education aims to develop highly motivated and competent teachers specializing the content in the pedagogy for secondary education after a successful completion of all academic requirements of the degree of the program. Graduates for secondary education should be able to practice the teaching profession in the secondary education level. So, the program outcomes specific to degrees are programs spelled out in the specific policies, standards, and guidelines or PSG per program or degree issued by the same commission. So, the following are the program outcomes for teacher education in 2017 Philippines. So, graduates of the teacher education program equipped with the relevant knowledge, skills, attitude, and values shall be able to A. Articulate the rootedness of education and philosophical, sociocultural, historical, psychological, and political context. B. Demonstrate mastery of subject matter or discipline. Facilitate learning using a wide range of teaching methodologies and delivery modes or appropriate to specific learners and their environments. D. Develop innovative curricula, instructional plans, teaching approaches, and resources for diverse learners. So, E. Apply skills in the development and utilizations of ICT to promote quality, relevant, and sustainable educational practice. Letter F. Demonstrate a variety of thinking skills in planning, monitoring, assessing, and reporting learning progress and outcomes. Letter J. Practice professional and ethical teaching standards sensitive to the local, national, and global realities. H. Pursue lifelong learning for personal and professional growth through varied experiential and field-based opportunities. So, in addition to the program outcomes of teacher education as a discipline, there are program outcomes specific to Bachelor of Elementary Education or CMO number 74 series of 2017, Bachelor of Secondary Education major in English, Mathematics, Filipino, Science, Social Studies, or CMO number 75 series of 2017, Bachelor of Early Childhood Education, CMO number 76 series of 2017, Bachelor of Specific Needs Education, CMO number 77 series of 2017, Bachelor of Technology and Livelihood Education. CMO number 78 series of 2017, Bachelor of Technical Vocational Teacher Education, CMO number 79 series of 2017, Bachelor of Physical Education, CMO number 80 series of 2017, Bachelor of Culture and Arts Education, CMO number 82 series of 2017. For details, refers to the given CMOs which I mentioned before ay nakapaloob sa Program Outcomes for Teacher Education 2017 Philippines. That's all. Thank you for listening and God bless us all.
Good day, everyone. I'm Leia Largili and L. Aligarbes. Today, I'll be going to discuss the taxonomies of the cognitive domain by Bloom, Anderson, and Krathwohl.
Benjamin Samuel Bloom was an American educational psychologist who made contributions to the classification of educational objectives and to the theory of mastery learning.
In 1956, he developed the Bloom's taxonomy with his collaborators. Bloom's taxonomy is a toolbox that teachers or students can use to classify and organize learning objectives. This framework has been applied by generations of K-12 teachers and college instructors in their teaching. It consists of 6 major categories: knowledge, comprehensions, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. The categories of the knowledge were presented as skills and abilities, with understanding the knowledge was the necessary precondition for putting these skills and abilities into practice. While each category contains subcategories, all lying along a continuum from simple to complex and concrete to abstract. The taxonomy is popularly remembered according to the 6 main categories. So there are 6 levels of taxonomy in Bloom's taxonomy. The first level of taxonomy is knowledge. It is about remembering or retrieving previously learning material. Example verbs that are related are identify something, define, recall, name something, memorize, and repeat. The second level taxonomy is comprehension. It is the ability to grasp or construct meaning from material. Example of verbs that are related to the function are locate, describe, discuss, illustrate, interpret, and explain. The third level of taxonomy is application. It is the ability to use learned material in new and concrete situations. Example of verbs that relate to this function are organize, apply, relate, employ, and structure, and illustrate. The fourth level of taxonomy is analysis, the ability to break down or distinguish the parts of material into its components so that its organizational structure may be better understood. Example of verbs that relate to this function are compare, differentiate, categorize, analyze, and examine. The fifth level of taxonomy is synthesis. It is the ability to put parts together to form a coherent or unique new whole. Example of verbs that relate to this function are compose, produce, plan, invent, design, assemble, and develop. The sixth and last level of taxonomy is evaluation. It is the ability to judge and even critique the value of material for given purpose. Example of the verb that relate to this function are judge, assess, compare, evaluate, measure, rate, and criticize. Now, let's proceed to the revised version of the Bloom's taxonomy. 45 years later, the original taxonomy was revised by Bloom's former students, Lauren Anderson and his fellow researcher, David Krathwohl. Now, what are the divisions that both Anderson and Krathwohl made to the original taxonomy? First, in the original taxonomy, the knowledge category embodies both noun and verb aspects. Example, adjective. After the discussion, students shall be able to remember the definition of the figure of speech. The word remember is a verb, while the figure of speech is a noun. Thus, it creates a dimensionality to the category knowledge. The revised taxonomy allowed the two aspects from separate dimension that not provided basis for the knowledge dimensions, and the verb provided basis for the cognitive process. Under the original Bloom's taxonomy, the knowledge category only included the three knowledge dimensions. First, the factual, second, the conceptual, and the third, the procedural. With Anderson and Krathwohl updates, they added the fourth knowledge dimensions, which is the metacognitive. This given significance to the student's awareness of his metacognitive activities. Second, the categories were renamed and were exchanged to verb form to fit the way they were used in the objective. Knowledge to verb aspects of the original knowledge category was skipped but was renamed remember. Comprehensions. Anderson and Krathwohl both believe that understand was a widespread synonym of comprehending. So the comprehension was named understand, application, analysis, and evaluation. But in their verb form is as apply, analyze, and evaluate. Third is synthesis. Change places with evaluation and was renamed create. The word synthesis was not very negative about the learning actions. Therefore, it was replaced by creating, putting the learned things together in a novel way. In other words, create was the top of the hierarchy because both believe that being able to give evaluation to a given fact it is irrelevant or not, or if it is fact or not, is a prerequisite to be able to create something from it. Now, let's discuss about the different levels of the revised version of Bloom's taxonomy by Anderson and Krathwohl. On the first level, we'll learn to remember. There is just rote memorization and recollection of facts without much understanding. For example, if we learn about lemons, we want to remember the name, shape, color, size, and that they are sour. Once memorized these essentially meaningless facts, we move to the second level of learning. On the level 2, we learn to understand. We begin to decode information and learn that a lemon is yellow when it is ripe to eat, and if we take a bite, that is really super sour. We also understand that lemons love sunshine and then they contain lots of vitamin C, which is a great natural antioxidant that keeps us healthy. Now, as we really understand a lemon, we can work with it. On the third level, we apply what we know. We've understood that while lemon is sour, they are also a great provider of vitamin C. To apply this knowledge in a meaningful way, we could boil a lemon into hot water and add some honey. Then serve this hot lemon to our sick sister who's in need of a treatment. On the fourth level, we learn to analyze. This involves examining the breaking down information into components, determining how the parts relate to one another, and finding evidence to support generalizations. We study the lemon's flesh, examine the skin, and look at level of vitamins. We conclude that we can eat everything inside. While the skin tastes bitter and contains traces of toxic pesticides, it ought not to be consumed. Now we are ready to evaluate, analyze, critique, and compare. To evaluate our lemon as a good source of vitamin, we compare to other sources such as oranges and supplements. We look at the following properties: vitamin levels, affordability, taste, and packaging waste. If we evaluate our thoughts critically and without bias, we learn where the lemons score high and where others score higher. Now, after we have learned, understood, applied, analyzed, and evaluated, we are ready to create. As we now really understand lemons, also in comparison to similar things, we can formulate a plan to create our own natural lemonade. It's now easy to come up with a cute shop design, a good name, Sweet Lemons, and a good slogan, natural, healthy, yummy. To conclude, the revision of the original taxonomy is a two-dimensional framework: knowledge and cognitive processes. The former most resembles the subcategories of the original knowledge category. The latter resembles the 6 categories of the original taxonomy, with the knowledge category named remember, the comprehensions category named understand, synthesis renamed create and made the top category, and the remaining categories change to their verbs forms: apply, analyze, and evaluate. They are arranged in the hierarchical structure, but not as early as in the original taxonomy.
Hello everyone, my name is Marzano and my topic was all about Bloom's and Anderson's compare. Benjamin Bloom critically examined his own cognitive taxonomy, and he noted that there is a fundamental difference between the knowledge category, which is first level in his taxonomy, and the mental operation, the higher 5 levels in his taxonomy: comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation. Perform on that knowledge, or what with that knowledge. May I recall of knowledge is different from the comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation of that knowledge. So Bloom also identified specific types of knowledge, such as terminology, specific facts, conventions, trends and sequence, classifications and categories, criteria, methodology, principles and generalization, theories and structures. So first is, what is terminology? Terminology is a group of specialized words and respective meanings in particular field, and also the study of such terms and their use. A term is a word, compound word, or multi-word expressions that in a specific context is given specific meanings. Terminology is a discipline that systematically studies the labeling or designating of concepts particular to one or more subject fields or domains of human activity. Next one is specific facts. This is one of the most important aspects of the context of your paper. The fact you use must be specific. Next one is convention. is a set of agreed, stipulated, or generally accepted standards, norms, social norms, or criteria, often taken the forms of custom. In a social context, a convention may retain the character of an unwritten law of custom. For example, the manner in which people greet each other, such as by shaking each other's hands. Certain types of rules or customs may become law, and sometimes they may be further codified to formalize or enforce the convention. For example, laws that define on which side of the road vehicles must be driven. So the next one is trends and sequences. It includes trends as attempts to point out up the interrelationship among a number or specific events which are separated by time. It also includes representations of a process which may involve the time as well as casual interrelations of a series of specific events. Particular workers have selected those which they believe points to a trend or sequence. In this respect, trends and sequence are those relationships and processes which have been selected or emphasized by the workers in the field. Many of the trends and sequences are difficult to communicate because they involve highly dynamic actions, processes, and movements, which are not fully respected by the static verbal, graphic, or symbolic forms. Students may have difficulty in learning trends and sequences unless they are also familiar with the specifics on which such trends and sequence are based. So next is classification and categories. Classification involves assigning an instant to a category, and featured inference involves predicting a featured for a category instance. Correspondingly, categories can be learned in two distinct ways, by classification and featured inference. A typical difference between these in a perceptual category learning paradigm is the presence of the category label as part of the stimulus in featuring inference learning and not in classification learning. So next is the criteria. Criteria is a standard on which judgments or decisions may be based. Next is methodology. So methodology is the study of research methods. However, the term can also refer to the methods themselves or to philosophical discussion of associated background assumptions. A method is a structured procedure for bringing about a certain goals. In the context of research, this goal is usually to discover new knowledge or to verify pre-existing knowledge claims. This normally involves various steps. In the context of research, this goal is usually to discover new knowledge or to verify pre-existing knowledge claims. This normally involves various steps, like choosing a sample, collecting data from the sample, and interpreting this data. This study of methods involves a detailed description and analysis of these processes. It includes evaluative aspects by comparing different methods to assess their advantages and disadvantages relative to different research goals and situations. This way, a methodology can help make the research process efficient and reliable by guiding researchers in which method to employ at each steps. So the next is the principle. A principle is a kind of rule, beliefs, or idea that guides you. You can also say a good, ethical person has a lot of principle. In general, a principle is some kind of basic truth that helps you with your life. Be fair is a principle that guides or should guide most people and businesses. Next is generalization. Generalization means the act of forming conclusions from a small amount of information. Next is a theory. A theory is a set of accepted beliefs or organized principles that explain and guide analysis, and one of the ways that theory is defined is that it is different from practice when certain principles are tested. The next is the structure. A structure is the arrangement and organization of interrelated elements in a material object or system, or the object or system so organized. Material structure includes man-made objects such as buildings and machines, and natural objects such as biological organisms, minerals, and chemicals. Abstract structures includes data structures in computer science and musical forms. So, in the revised cognitive taxonomy, Anderson and Krathwohl identified 4 levels of knowledge. The first level is factual knowledge, second is conceptual knowledge, third is procedural knowledge, and fourth is metacognitive knowledge. If you compare the specific types of knowledge given by Bloom, take note that the first 3 categories, factual, conceptual, and procedural knowledge, were cited by Bloom. So how do the 4 categories of knowledge differ from one another? So factual knowledge means, as the name implies, this refers to facts. This refers to the essential facts, terminology, details, or elements students must know or be familiar with in order to understand a discipline or solve a problem in it. Next is conceptual knowledge. This refers to the interrelationship of facts. It is facts put together within a large structure that enable them to function together. It is a knowledge of classifications, principles, generalization, theories, models, or structures pertinent to a particular disciplinary area. Next is procedural knowledge. This is a knowing how to do something. Refers to information or knowledge that helps students to do something specific to a discipline, subject, or area of the study. It includes knowledge of methods of inquiry, criteria for using skills, algorithm, techniques, and methods. Next is metacognitive knowledge. This is knowing that you know. This is thinking about your own thinking in a purposeful way. It is awareness and knowledge of one's own cognition. It is a reflective knowledge about how to go about solving problems and cognitive tasks. It includes contextual and conditional knowledge and knowledge about self. So before I will end my report, I would like to recap my topic. It's all about the Bloom's specific types of knowledge, such as terminology, specific facts, conventions, trends and sequences, classification and categories, criteria, methodology, principles and generalizations, theories and structures. And also Anderson and Krathwohl identified 4 levels of knowledge. First is factual knowledge, second is conceptual knowledge, third is procedural knowledge, and last is metacognitive knowledge. So that's all. That's the end of my report. Thank you and have a good day, everyone.
Good day, everyone. Today we are going to continue the topic that were given to us, and our topic for today is 3.4 Domain 1 Cognitive Knowledge. So first, let us discuss what is cognitive knowledge. So cognitive knowledge, it refers to a person's stored information about human thinking, especially about the features of his own thinking. So here are some categories or levels of this domain. The first category or level of this domain is remembering. Remembering previously learned information and the outcome verbs define, describe, identify, label, match, list, name, outline, recall, recognize, reproduce, select, and state. Also, learning outcome statements recite the multiplication tables, match the word with the parts of the picture of a sewing machine. Next category is understanding. Understanding, comprehending the meaning, translation, and interpretation of instructions, state a problem in one's own word. And the outcome verbs distinguish, estimate, explain, give example, interpret, paraphrase, and summarize. Also, learning outcome statements explain in one's own words the stages in the life cycle of a butterfly, distinguish the different geometric figures. Next category is applying. Applying using what was learned in the classroom in similar new situations, and the outcome verbs apply, change, compute, construct, demonstrate, discover, modify, prepare, produce, show, solve, and use. Also, learning outcome statements use a mathematical formula to solve an algebra problem. Prepare daily menus for 1 week for a family of 6. Next category is analyzing. Analyzing, separating materials or concept into components parts to understand the whole. And the outcome verbs analyze, compare, contrast, diagram, differentiate, distinguish, illustrate, outline, and select. Also, learning outcome statements observe a classroom and list down the things to be improved. Differentiate the parts of a tree. Next category is evaluating. Evaluating, judging the value of an idea, object or material, and the outcome verbs compare, conclude, criticize, critique, defend, evaluate, relate, support, and justify. Also, learning outcome statements defend a research proposal, select the most effective solution, critique a class demonstration. And the last category is creating. Creating, building a structure or pattern, putting parts together. And the outcome verbs categorize, combine, compile, compose, devise, design, plan, organize, revise, rearrange, generate, and modify. Also, learning outcome statements compile personal records and documents into a portfolio, write a syllabus for a school subject.
Good day everyone, I am Jana Maika P. Aguilar and I am here today to discuss the psychomotor skills. So, what are psychomotor skills? So, essentially, they are movement tasks that require both cognitive and motor processes. So, these processes in turn often lead individuals to learn about the environment around them and be able to manipulate that environment. So, here are the example. So a child that is learning how to hit a baseball off a tee is developing hand-eye coordination that allows them to contact the ball with the bat. Through practice, the child evaluates how the bat and ball interact. So if they swing and miss, they evaluate the swing path of the bat and adjust the height of their swing accordingly, such that they can contact the ball. So this is how psychomotor learning takes place. So though this is a simplistic example, but it illustrates how cognition and motor skills are used together to achieve a particular result. Did you know that in the early 70s, E. Simpson, Dave, and A.S. Harrow recommended categories for the psychomotor domain, which included physical coordination, movement, and use of the motor skills body parts. So, development of these skills requires constant practice in accuracy and speed. So, Simpson contributed 7 categories, Dave contributed 5 categories, and Harrow contributed 6 categories. So now I will going to discuss the 7 categories contributed by E. Simpson. First category is the perception or awareness. So it is the ability to use sensory cues to guide motor activity. So this ranges from sensory stimulation through cue selection to translation. So example, detects nonverbal communication cues. Estimate where a ball will land after it is thrown and then moving to the correct location to catch the ball. Adjust heat of stove to correct temperature by smell and taste of food. Adjust the height of the forks on a forklift by comparing where the forks are in relation to the pallet. So here are the keywords. Chooses, describes, detects, differentiates, distinguishes, identifies, isolate, relates, and select. So the second category is the set. Readiness to act. It includes mental, physical, and emotional set. So these 3 sets are disposition that predetermine a person's response to different situation, or sometimes it called mindset. So example, knows and acts upon a sequence of steps in a manufacturing process. Recognize one's ability and limitation. Show desire to learn a new process or motivation. Note that this subdivision of psychomotor is closely related with the responding to phenomena, subdivision of the affective domain. And here are the keywords. First is begin, displace, explain, moved, proceed, react, show, state, and volunteers. So the third category is the guided response. So the early stages in learning a complex skill that includes imitation and trial and error. Adequacy of performance is achieved by practicing. Example, performs a mathematical equation as demonstrated. Follows instructions to build a model. Responds a hand signal of instructor while learning to operate a forklift. Keywords, copies, traces, follows, react, reproduce, and respond. The fourth category is the mechanism or the basic proficiency. So this is the intermediate stage in learning a complex skill. Learned responses have become habitual in the movements, can be performed with some confidence and proficiency. Example, use a personal computer, repair a leaking faucet, or drive a car. Keywords, assembles, calibrates, contracts, dismantles, display, fastens, fixes, grind, heats, manipulate, measure, mend, mixes, organize, and sketches. The fifth category that E. Simpson contributed is the complex overt response. So the skillful performance of motor acts that involve complex movement pattern. Proficiency is indicated by quick, accurate, and highly coordinated performance requiring a minimum of energy. So this category includes performing without hesitation and automatic performance. So for example, players often utter sounds of satisfaction or expletives as soon as they hit a tennis ball or throw a football because they can tell by the feel of the act what the result will produce. Keywords, assembles, builds, calibrates, construct, dismantles, display, fastens, fixes, grind, hit, manipulate, measure, mend, mixes, organize, and sketches. So note, the key words are the same as mechanism, but will have adverbs or adjectives that indicate that the performance is quicker, better, and more accurate. So the sixth category contributed by E. Simpson is the adaptation. So it is the skills are well developed and the individual can modify movement patterns to fit special requirements. Example, responds effectively to unexpected experiences, modifies instruction to meet the needs of the learners, perform a task with a machine that it was not originally intended to do. Keywords, adapt, alter, changes, rearranges, reorganize, revises, and varies. So the last category is the origination. It is creating a new movement patterns to fit a particular situation or specific problem. Learning outcomes emphasize creativity based upon highly developed skill. Example, construct a new theory, develop a new and comprehensive training programming, creates a new gymnastic routine. Keywords, arrange, build, combine, composes, construct, create, design, initiate, makes, and originates.
For the continuation of Ms. Aguilar's report, I, Vanessa I. Aban, will continue. And now, in order to better understand the psychomotor domain, we will examine the psychomotor taxonomy adaptation developed by R.H. Dave. The following examines Dave's psychomotor domain by listing psychological behavior descriptions for each stage, examples of activities, demonstrations, and evidence of learning, and last, keywords or verbs that describe that stage. The first category by Dave was imitation. Imitation is observing and patterning behavior after someone else. Performance may be of a low quality. So example, copying a work of art, performing a skill while observing a demonstrator. And the keywords, copy, follow, mimic, repeat, replicate, reproduce, and trace. The second one is the manipulation, being able to perform certain actions by memory of following instructions. Examples, being able to perform a skill on one's own after taking lessons or reading about it. Follows instruction to build a model. Keywords, act, build, execute, and perform. The third one is the precision, refining, becoming more exact, performing a skill within a high degree of precision. So example, working and reworking something so it will be just right, perform a skill or task without assistance, demonstrate a task to a beginner. Keywords, calibrate, demonstrate, master, and perfectionism. The fourth one is the articulation, coordinating and adapting a series of action to achieve harmony and internal consistency. Example, combining a series of skills to produce a video that involve music, drama, color, sound, and etc. And combining a series of skills or activities to meet a novel requirement. Keywords, adapt, constructs, combine, creates, customize, modifies, and formulate. The fifth one and the last one is the naturalization, mastering a high-level performance until it becomes second nature or natural without needing to think much about it. So example, maneuvers a car into a tight parallel parking spot, operates a computer quickly and accurately, displays competence while playing the piano, Michael Jordan playing basketball or Nancy Lopez hitting a golf ball. The keywords, create, design, develop, invent, manage, and naturally. And now let's proceed to Anita Harrow's taxonomy in 1972. So Anita Harrow's taxonomy in 1972 of psychomotor domain focuses on the development of physical fitness, dexterity, agility, and body control to achieve a high level of expertise. Harrow's taxonomy is organized according to the degree of coordination, including involuntary responses and learned capabilities. It starts with the simple reflexes and goes to complex, highly expressive movements requiring coordination and precision. The first category by Harrow was reflex movements. It is a reaction that are not learned, such as involuntary reaction. Example, instinctive response. The keywords react and respond. The second one is the fundamental movement. So it is a basic movement such as walking or grasping. So example, perform a simple task. Keywords, grabs an object, throw a ball, and walk. The third one is the perceptual abilities. Response to stimuli such as visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or tactile discrimination. Example, track a moving object, recognize a pattern. Keywords, catch a ball, draw, or write. So the fourth is physical abilities or the fitness. Stamina that must be developed for further development such as strength and agility. Example, gain strength, run a marathon. Keywords, agility, endurance, and strength. The fifth one is the skilled movements. Advanced learned movements as one would find in sport or acting. Examples, using an advanced series of integrated movements. Perform a role in a stage play or play in a set of a series in a sports game. Keywords, adopt, constructs, creates, and modifies. The last one is non-discursive communication. It is use effective body language such as gestures and facial expressions. So example, express oneself by using movements and gestures. Keywords, arrange, compose, and interpretation. These contributions from Simpson, Dave, and Harrow have been reorganized and simplified into 4 categories or level. The first simplified and reorganized categories of learning in the psychomotor domain. First is observing. It is active mental attention to a physical activity. Outcome verbs, watch, detect, distinguish, differentiate, describe, relate, and select. Learning outcome statements, detect nonverbal communication cues, watch a more experienced person, observe and read directions. The second one is imitating. It is attempt to copy a physical behavior. Outcome verbs, begin, explain, move, display, proceed, react, show, state, and volunteer. Learning outcome statements, show understanding and do sequence of steps with assistance, recognize one's limitation. The third one is the practicing. It is a performing a specific activity repeatedly. Bend, and the outcome verbs is bend, calibrate, construct, differentiate, dismantle, display, fasten, fix, grasp, green, handle, measure, mix, operate, manipulate, and met. So the learning outcome statements operate quickly and accurately, display competence while performing. Performance is moving towards becoming automatic and smooth. The last one and the fourth one is adapting. It is fine-tuning the skill and making minor adjustment to attain perfection. So the outcome verbs, organize, relax, shorten, sketch, write, rearrange, compose, create, and design and originate. Learning outcome statements perform automatically, construct a new scheme or sequence, apply skill in new situation, create a new routine, develop a new program. And that should be all. Thank you for listening. God bless.
Good day, everybody.
My name is Patty Angela Olipole from Group 1, and I am assigned to discuss about the affective domain. This affective domain centers on the interpersonal skills or thinking and reasoning related to feelings or emotions. This domain includes the manner in which we deal with things emotionally, such as feelings, values, appreciation, enthusiasm, motivation, and attitudes. Teachers can increase their effectiveness by considering the affective domain in planning courses, delivering lectures and activities, and assessing student learning. The affective domain contains 5 levels, from lowest to highest, and the following are receiving, responding, valuing, organizing, and characterizing. First is receiving. Receiving is the lowest level of the affective domain. It is simply the awareness of feelings and emotions. It involves passively paying attention and being aware of the existence of certain ideas, material, or phenomena. Without this level, no learning can occur. If information is never received and it cannot be remembered. Examples include listening attentively to someone, watching a movie, or listening to a lecture. Second is responding. This level involves actively participating in the learning process. You are not only aware of the stimulus, but you react or respond to it in some way. For example, participating in discussion, asking questions, and presenting information to others are next level skills that create stronger foundation for interpersonal connection and expression. And the 3 remaining levels of affective domain will be discussed by Shilami Balikog.
Good day, everyone. My name is Sheila B. Balikog. My topic is all about characterization, organization, and valuing. First is characterization. This is the highest of the affected domain. It is about internalizing values. It means acting constantly and in accordance with a set of values you have internalized in your characterization about life. Essentially, you have internalized values and let them control or guide your behavior. The second is organization. It is involved putting together different values, information, and ideas, then relating them to already held beliefs to bring an internally constantly philosophy. As we grow, realize that different values and beliefs are held and we must grapple with the conflict of such a message. To do so, our brain is engaged in organization. We will contrast different viewpoints and create our own unique system to evaluate what we see occurring based in our values. The purpose of this level is on comparing, relating, and to create the unique value system. The last is valuing. So valuing is the ability to see the worth of something, and express valuing is concerned with the worth you had to a particular object, phenomenon, behavior, or piece of information. Appreciation, justification, invitation, and demonstration are always when we show this category of thinking with interpersonal situation. That's all. Thank you.
Good day everyone. By the way, I am Jezebel Aldamia, a fourth-year student taking Bachelor of Science in Mathematics. Today I'm going to discuss with you the new taxonomy according to Marzano and Kendall. Now before we start discussing the new taxonomy, I think it is just and right to discuss first or to talk about our proponents. First we have Dr. Robert J. Marzano. Dr. Robert J. Marzano actually came up with this new taxonomy of educational objectives, which was published in the year 2000, because he thinks that Bloom's taxonomy has a lot of shortcomings. So he has given us a wide range of factors that would make the teacher or we as a future educators to understand our learners better in how they think. The second person that we have here is John S. Kendall. John Kendall is a senior director in research at Mid-Continent Research for Education and Learning. That's McCrell in Aurora, Colorado in the US. So it's actually in McCrell where he met Dr. Marzano. They are co-workers in McCrell. He worked with clients to establish performance standards for the classroom, develop standards for principals, and identify the knowledge and skills that help the students learn. Okay, now before we go to our new taxonomy, let's first take a look at the Bloom's taxonomy. Remember, we already have two variations of this taxonomy. The first one that we have here, we have 6 levels. Okay, so we have knowledge, comprehension, application, and again, the first 3 knowledge, comprehension, and application are all parts of lower order thinking skills. And according to Bloom, the last 3, the upper 3 levels here, analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, are part of the HOTS or the higher order thinking skills. Okay, so this is the old version of Bloom's taxonomy. The new one, the revised Bloom's taxonomy, is different to the old one, since instead of using nouns, now it had been using verbs. Okay, so remembering instead of knowledge, understanding instead of comprehension, applying instead of application, analyzing instead of analysis, and most notably it has reached synthesis and made it creating. Okay, it uses the term of or the verb creating for synthesis. And for evaluation, it's still using evaluating, but now it is a level lower than creating. Okay, so those are the two differences between the new Bloom's taxonomy and the old version. Again, the old version says nouns, the new version uses verbs, and the old version is evaluation is its highest level, while the revised Bloom's taxonomy has created, which is actually simply says at it's the highest level, evaluating is just a second to the highest level. Now let's take a look at the new taxonomy. According to Marzano and Kendall, okay, so this is Marzano and Kendall's new taxonomy. It does not only show us cognitive levels, unlike Bloom's taxonomy, that only shows us the mental processes or the cognitive levels. In Marzano and Kendall's new taxonomy, there are actually 3 domains of knowledge. The 3 dominants of knowledge, not just the cognitive, these 3 domains of knowledge are called information, mental procedure, and the psychomotor procedures. And they have given us the 6 levels of processing or the 6 difficulty levels. So level 1, we have recovery. Another term for this is the retrieval. Then we have level 2, comprehension. Level 3 is analysis. Level 4 is use of knowledge. Then level 5 is the metacognitive. And level 6 is the internal system or self system. As we go along with this discussion, it could be better that you have your notebook with you or a piece of paper and a pen so that you can easily shut down all the things that you're going to learn out of this topic. Okay, so again, according to Marzano and Kendall, there are 3 domains of knowledge. The ones that we find here at the side, so information, mental procedure, and the psychomotor procedures. And there are 6 processing levels or difficult levels, starting with level 1, which is recovery or retrieval, and the last level or the highest would be the internal or the self system. So now, before we go to the different processing levels, let us first discuss the 3 domains of knowledge. We have here, right, so the first domain of knowledge that we have is the information or the clarity of knowledge. The second one is called mental procedures or procedural knowledge. Now we have also the third domain of knowledge, which is the psychomotor procedures. So let's first take a look at information or declarative knowledge. The first one is vocabulary terms. These are only composed of words or phrases. Then the second level or the second part would be the facts, which is all about the specific characteristics of something. Then we have the third part, which is time sequence. The fourth part is generalization, and lastly, we have the principle, or these are the generalization that shows relationship. Okay, now, what is the difference between all of these 5 parts of information or declarative knowledge? Okay, for example, your topic is all about Ibong Adarna. Now, as we are going to discuss the different parts of the clarity of knowledge or information. Okay, according to your information domain, if you were talking about vocabulary terms, only the first part, you only know that what is Ibong Adarna is. You only know the term is Barbania, okay, which is the kingdom or the settings of the story. When you go to the second part, which is the facts, in which you are already talking about specific characteristics, so you already know how Ibong Adarna looks, the color of its feather, you already know the family that live in the Barbanian, what was the name of the father, and who were their kids or who were their son, okay? So you know the specific characteristics. Now the third part is time sequence, okay? So in this case, we are talking about, the time sequence or the time. The next is the fourth part would be the generalization. So generalization, this can be the moral of the story. So we can say, of course, that is only one generalization out of a lot of generalization. A lot of morals that we can get from this story of Ibong Adarna. And now, lastly, we have the principles. The principles, of course, is the last part, which shows us generalizations that shows a relationship. Okay, so you can say indeed, okay, so those are the principles that we can have. So again, these principles are higher than your generalization. Because principles are generalization that shows a relationship. So these are the 5 different parts of information domain or declarative knowledge according to Marzano and Kendall. Now we go to the second part, okay, the second domain, which is the mental procedures. Mental procedures that we have here, if the information or declarative procedure is the human knowledge, what you know, what are the facts you know, the things that you know, the information that you know about a certain thing. Well, mental procedures can be described as how to. So these are the processes, okay? The processes of your brain, these are your mental procedures on how your brain works in acquiring a certain knowledge. So according to Marzano and Kendall, this has 4 parts, okay? So starting from the least complicated, which is a single rule. When you say single rule, this is only a small set of rules with no accompanying steps. Say for example, the rules of capitalization or capitalizing names. You don't really need to follow a lot of steps, right? In doing this, right, diba? This process or this mental procedure, so we say a single rule. This only a small set of rules with no accompanying steps or not have a lot of steps. The second level or the second part is called algorithm. When you say algorithm, this does not vary in application once learned. They have a specific outcomes and they have very specific steps. See, when you are trying to add decimal, okay, what are some of the things that you know or some of the things that you do when you are trying to add decimals. Okay, so whenever you learn something, it does not vary in application once you have learned. They have very specific outcomes and very specific steps. So again, our example is addition of decimals. When you add decimals, you know what that you should align the decimal points. You should perform carrying over if the sum is more than 10. For example, okay? So once you have learned it, there's no variation and there's always a specific outcome. The outcome is always the same and the steps you follow are always the same, right? The third part is the tactic. When you say tactic, it does not consist of steps that must be performed in a specific order. Rather, they're made up of general rules with an overall flow of execution. Now, in your algorithm, you follow any specific rules or steps, but in tactic, you don't really have any specific steps, okay? There are only general rules with an overall flow of execution. One example that I can give you would be when you are playing your puzzle, right? When you put together a zigzag puzzle, you don't really follow any specific steps, right? There's only an overall flow of execution until such time that you can come up or you can complete your zigzag puzzle. Okay? And the last one, the highest of this would be the macro procedures. The macro procedures, of course, these are the bigger procedures that we have. These are robust procedures, very strict, that have a diversity of possible products or outcomes are involved in the execution of many interrelated sub-procedures. So one example for that I can give you is when writing an essay. Okay, in writing an essay, you have different or you have diversity of possible products. Okay, so the outcomes are different and it involves the execution of different sub-procedures. Marami kang ginagawa na mga mental procedure na ginagamit mo so that you can come up with an essay, right? Now we go to the last domain of knowledge. According to Marzano and Kendall, and this is the psychomotor procedure. According to them, the psychomotor, as the name suggests, these are physical functions that were developed without formal instruction. So these physical procedures, again, from as what Marzano and Kendall says, did not only concentrate on the cognitive domain, but they have also included your psychomotor domain. So information, mental procedures, and psychomotor procedures, now according to them, the psychomotor procedures actually has three parts. The first one is the foundational procedure, then we have simple combination procedure, and complex combination procedure. Now, when we say the foundational procedure, these are the basic parts of our movements. So, for example, static strength, the overall equilibrium or the overall balance that our body has, the wrist finger speed, how fast are we at using the wrist and our finger arm and hand steadiness, okay? How you can control your arm and your hand. Now, simple combination in this complex combination, here would be movements, but of course, when you say simple combination procedure, these are only simple ones, okay? So, for example, shooting a free throw, throwing the ball, catching a ball, those are only simple combination procedures. Then when we see complex combination procedures, it is already combination of all your single combination procedure. For example, for this would be playing a sports like playing a basketball. For example, would you be using different types of combination procedures, not just throwing a free throw, but also catching a ball. also throwing a ball, also dribbling the ball, and so on. Okay, so complex combination procedure example for this would be playing sports. Alright, so we're done with the 3 domains of knowledge according to Marzano and Kendall. Now here is Roslyn Bandibas to continue the discussion. Specifically, she will discuss the 6 processing levels of Marzano and Kendall's new taxonomy.